where did you and your staff turn to first in terms of finding athletes, identifying athletes that are, maybe going to be, appropriate fit for Delaware? Like, where did that journey begin for you as a team? And then also, what are some of the things that you were looking for in those initial stages? Was it purely, hey, I'm going to go, I have a coach who's screening questionnaires and, oh, these athletes, this and that? Is it purely athletes that have reached out to us? Give a little understanding for athletes at home who are trying to start this process.
Sure, yeah, I think that Delaware is a big school, so we definitely do that walk-on piece in the fall, and get a good amount of, student interest there. But when I got here, I turned to the team, right? Like, who did you row with that you would run a row with again? Who made you motivated and who pushed you, right? And are they still in high school? And can, and then finding out from there. And I think that there's a great deal of our athletes that like respected people that they used to row with, right? And then kind of making sure that we've got connections with those programs. Definitely have my connections from Philadelphia, and connecting with coaches there was pretty easy. But reaching outside of what I would say like my normal pool was, and making sure that the athletes understand what's available, because I grew up in New Jersey. I lived in Philadelphia. I didn't know what was here, right? Because I think it's really easy to write something off or put something on your list based on what you've heard, right? So that's why I turned to my student athletes and saw like what connections do they have and what have they been saying about their program, and are they able to get people to come here? Because I think like that pipeline process for recruiting is huge, right? Like if someone's here and someone's enjoying their experience, they're going to want other people to enjoy the experience too, especially if they were great teammates, right? So that was definitely something that we relied on initially. I think that everyone that we committed for this fall, we started talking to this fall.
Gotcha. And then and that's amazing. I mean, I think that's a great, like, I have heard that and, in the past done it, to a degree, but I didn't invest fully into that where it's like, hey, like talking about your current team, like who are those people that you rode with that, again, like you said, you would want to row with again at the next level, right? And let's start there, right? Let's start with because who better to sell that vision? Who better to sell, your program, your school, even than the people who have been there for a couple of years already, and are doing the day to day. So I think that's a huge piece. And from a athlete who is sophomore, junior in high school, like again, high school, they're starting to, and again, coming back to that piece that you said, where it's like, hey, like I want to be an advocate for all athletes, who want to go on and row at the next level and be someone who can provide information for them. And even as it relates to Delaware specifically, but even just in general, but where would those athletes begin who maybe they don't have that connection? Maybe they are from from down south in Florida or on the West Coast or in the Midwest and up in the Northeast, and they don't have a direct tie through another athlete to
Sure.
Delaware. Where would you advise they begin? Where would you say like actually carries some weight? Is it just creating a recruiting profile and letting it sit, or is it actually doing some research and reaching out to the coaches directly? What would you say to those athletes?
I'm just the kind of person that in life, like this is not a test run, right? Like, so if you're being passive in your experience, you may not get the experience you want. So like, of course you can make the profile. You're going to get, it's part of our job as coaches to reach out when we see the profile of a student athlete that is what we're looking for. But I think that there's so much more beyond that, right? So like you have to advocate for yourself in the recruiting process. I'm looking for people that I would not normally get here, right? Like that is recruiting. I'm looking for people and making sure that they think that this is somewhere that they want to be. That's recruiting in a nutshell. I'm not recruiting you if, there's not a lot of actual recruiting happening when I know that this is your number one, right? Like you're already in, right? So I think that like the people that are on the outside of that conversation, making sure the easiest way is fill out the school's, questionnaire. It doesn't take a lot of, and even when you fill out that questionnaire, it's not a bad idea to follow it up with the email, right? We see it, but what are we learning about you other than if you allow yourself to be numbers, then you're just going to be numbers, right? So create that conversation, create that interest, because again, at the end of the day, the worst thing you can hear is no. So just put yourself out there and take the risk.